everyone, it's Miss Leah and I'm here with our next first chapter from the Charlie Mae Simon nominees list. And the good thing about this list is there's something for everybody. And this week we're going to read A Drop of Hope by Keith Calabrese. And this book was much more mysterious than I expected. The intro says, "This story starts with a wish and ends in a crime. The wish isn't granted and the crime is never punished. Life is like that sometimes, but it isn't always a bad thing." Chapter 1, A Surprise in the Attic. Ernest Wilmette was alone in his dead grandfather's house, and he really wished he wasn't. He stood in front of the attic door. It was thinner than a usual door, and shorter too, probably by about 6 to 8 inches. Not that it would make any difference to Ernest. Ernest was 11, 12 and 4 months. He'd started 6th grade, middle school, a month ago, but you wouldn't guess it to look at him. He still had to sit in the back seat of the car because he wasn't tall or heavy enough for the airbag. Small or not, Ernest had made a promise. Not only that, he'd made it to a dying man. Ernest suspected those were the kinds of promises you really had to keep. It had been late last spring. They were in Grandpa Eddie's kitchen, just the two of them making sandwiches. "Ernest, can you do something for me?" Grandpa Eddie had said. "Sure," Ernest said, expecting his grandfather to send him to the fridge to fetch some mustard. "After I'm gone, promise that you'll clean out my attic, okay?" It was a strangely serious request. Stranger still for Ernest, who didn't know how sick his grandfather really was. No one ever talked about it around Ernest. Small Ernest, too small for the truth. He was scared to ask the obvious question, but too curious not to at the same time. "What's up in the attic?" Grandpa Eddie gazed down at Ernest, a knowing, weary look in his eyes. "Oh, just some things I should have parted with a long time ago," he said in a distant, almost spooky voice that Ernest hoped was just the medication. His parents had told him that much at least, that the pills Grandpa Eddie was taking might make him a little woozy and confused. Even still, Ernest couldn't help but notice how his grandfather had been looking at him these past few weeks, as if he knew some secret about Ernest, but wouldn't say what it was. "Okay," Ernest said uncertainly. "Good," the frail old man said just as suddenly back to himself again. He patted Ernest on the top of the head. "Now that's sorted, let's have some lunch." Ernest didn't know how to explain what happened. There was a brief moment of quiet, and then Grandpa Eddie simply walked over to the fridge to get them a drink. But something about that brief moment seemed significant, the way some moments just weigh more than others, and something about the way they then quietly, almost reverently, ate their turkey sandwiches at the kitchen table suggested to Ernest that he and his grandfather had just sealed a fateful pact, like the blood oaths the Greek gods are always making in the books Ernest loved to read. We'll stop there, and to finish, you have to check your book out at your local library.